dildo bet. Some time ago, in what I'm assuming was an effort to promote Saints Row 4, Sony decided to put Saints Row the Third on the instant game collection for PlayStation Plus users. I'm a PS Plus user, I saw it for free, so I thought, what the hell? Let's play it. Saints Row the Third has the infamous Saints becoming household names to the point where they're celebrities, they're signing autographs and everything, but they don't abandon the fact that they're still gangbangers, so they go out and do heists. But after a heist goes wrong, a rival gang named Morningstar moves into the city of Steelport and tries to absorb the Saints, trying to buy them off and everything. But after they refuse, things go awry and it is up to the Saints to take back the city of Steelport. The plot... the plot. In my opinion, I think Saints Row the Third is the pinnacle where THQ and Volition, the guys who brought you this game, said to themselves, fuck it. Let's just make this as ridiculous as possible. The reasons as to why make this as ridiculous as possible, I have no idea. It reminded me an awful lot of how Disney Channel would take certain characters from their shows and dumb them down to the point of mental handicap. Why did they do it? I don't know. So if you're looking for a game with clever writing, this is not it. Now, I will say that the story starts off as a bit of a satire on the media. You know, at the beginning of this game, these gang members are now celebrities. They're accepted into society. You know, people are asking for their autographs. So the beginning starts off as a bit of a satire and poking fun of how we glamorize people that shouldn't necessarily be glamorized for doing things that aren't exactly, you know, filled with talent. So I accepted that message that it was trying to convey. But as the story goes on, they just start throwing things at you to make the story even more ridiculous to the point that by the end of the game, they threw you things that some, you know, you accept because, okay, within the context of the story, it kind of makes sense. And then others, you're like, okay, you're just throwing stuff in here just for me to play this. And that's where the story gets by, because if this was a movie, this would have been the most stupid movie I've ever seen in my life. But the fact that it's a video game, I said to myself, this is stupid, but I get to play it, and I'm having fun with it, so the hell with it. One thing that I will commend the writers on is some of the characters that they wrote. The character that you play as, which is unnamed because that'll ruin the immersion of the customization of the game, which I'll get to in a second, but the character that you play as has some, you know, he has some charisma, he has some wit to him, so every now and then when he cracks a joke or he says a funny remark, you genuinely laugh. The two supporting characters that you're going to see throughout the game that you start off at the beginning of the game with are Piers, which is your right hand, your wingman. And Piers is not exactly the sharpest tool on the shed, but he's that kind of character that even though he isn't, he'll have a smart idea every now and then. He'll have your back, he's funny. And the other character is Shaundi, who's the tough female of the group. She's the one that is a little more down to earth and keeps the other two in check when they're fooling around. And at first you think that maybe she's going to be a little bit sexualized based on the way that she looks, but no, she's tough and she can hold her own. And in that retrospect, she ends up being one of the more likable characters in the game. As you progress through the story, you'll be introduced to other characters that I don't want to ruin for you, because that's part of the fun of this game, is finding out about these characters, having them introduced into the story and interacting with them, and what you as the player, as the character, as well as the other characters say to these other characters. And I will say that, for the most part, a lot of them are likable, a lot of them are funny. Over the top, but funny. But a couple others are kind of either meh, or some, you know, overstay their welcome. Like, there's this one character who, when he gets introduced, you can kind of tell, okay, this is the running joke for him throughout the rest of the game. And at first, it's funny, I laughed, but after his maybe third or fourth appearance, I was kind of like, it's really not funny anymore. But the game's main focus is not the story or the characters, it is the gameplay. Saints Row the Third at its core is a third-person shooter. However, the circumstances that you play under when it comes to that third-person shooter mechanic changes throughout the game. This game is very diversified. Certain missions will have you shooting at people dressed up in mascot costumes, to having to create a certain amount of damage, to even hurting yourself. Along with that, you'll also be driving several vehicles like cars, helicopters, jets, tanks, which leads me to two things. One that I didn't like, that is more of a personal thing, and the other that I really loved. I gotta go ahead and start off with the thing that I love first, and that is that some of these missions are just so fun to do. And I find it kind of funny that the most fun that I had in some of these missions was probably the shortest missions. I don't know if there was some sort of theory of relativity going on there, but I find it kind of funny that some of the missions that I thoroughly enjoyed and wouldn't mind playing again are some of the shortest. But the missions that I had the most fun in are the ones that are the most diverse. Like I just said, having to hurt yourself and create a certain amount of damage, to wrestling in the ring with luchadors, to, like I said, I don't want to give too much away because part of the fun of this game is unraveling what the game's gonna throw at you next. Like, what could this game possibly oh wow, they just did that. What I don't like are helicopter missions. I hate helicopter missions, and this is sort of a backhanded compliment. And the reason why I hate helicopter missions in this game, as well as other games that incorporate the same mechanic of piloting helicopters, such as the competitive franchise for this franchise, which is the Grand Theft Auto series, is that, you know, we have gone so advanced in the technology that is put into these video games that they were able to take actual realistic controls of a helicopter and incorporate them into a simulation of a helicopter in these games. So piloting these things is a bitch. I hate the fact that tweaking the left analog stick to move the helicopter will instantly tilt it, and I'm running into buildings, and it's just so frustrating, especially where you have other circumstances like either a timed clock, or you have to defend a certain person that's down on the ground and getting pummeled by all these machine guns. It's really frustrating for me. I really don't like helicopter missions. But it's not the game's fault, it's just a personal pet peeve of mine. Now, much like the Grand Theft Auto series, Saints Row the Third is also an open sandbox game, meaning these story missions could be activated whenever you want to. You can either go and do these story missions on your own time, or you can explore the city, participate in different activities, either try to buy or take over certain property areas. And while I do admit that the city of Steelport looks, I don't want to say beautiful, but it looks really good. It's a very decently designed and really detailed city with a lot of good AI for its pedestrians. And again, you know, it's sizable. It's not the largest environment that I've ever seen. I mean, the Rockstar has that title right now of having some of their more larger environments in their games, like Red Dead Redemption or Grand Theft Auto 4. This isn't exactly the biggest environment that I've seen, but it's sizable enough to where it'll take up an awful lot of your time trying to explore every inch of the city. What kind of sucks though is that almost every single of those activities that I just mentioned are mostly activities that you unlock by doing that same activity, only this time in the story mission that you just beat. So basically, after you beat a certain story mission, you could kind of redo that story mission, only this time it won't count as a story, but simply just as an activity. And on top of that, you only earn about half of the reward that you did when you did it under the story mission. Because when you do it under the story mission, you gain respect, which is this game's version of XP, in order to be able to use to unlock certain abilities and that sort of stuff, you know, upgrades. And you also earn money, so you can also buy some of these upgrades, as well as buy clothes at the clothing store, buy more upgrades for your weapons, as well as more ammo. When you redo these missions as activities, you only get the money, you don't get the respect. Which I'm not saying I'm not welcome to any more money, but it's just, I don't know, I just didn't feel like there was any sort of necessity to replay these missions again that much. Aside from that, you also got other things that you can do, such as assassinations. There's certain people that need to be offed, so you can go and do that. There's also some vehicles that you could steal if you want to, and also gain money and respect through that. And there's also some challenges within the game that, you know, like for example, blow up a certain amount of cars, or drive a certain amount of speed or a certain amount of mileage, run over a certain amount of pedestrians, streak for a number of seconds. You can streak. You can streak in this game. That's a challenge in this game. It doesn't get any better than this, folks. Which leads me to probably the biggest strength that this game has: customization. The customization system in this game is incredibly rich and deep and just plain around fun, because obviously there's some things in here that you can customize that any other game wouldn't allow you to customize. Grand Theft Auto 4 didn't allow me to increase the size of my penis. Aside from the enlargement of genitalia, you can also customize the way your character looks, from their apparel to their shape. You know, you can customize almost every single piece of detail on their face, from the angle of their nose to the width of their ears, everything. And on top of that, you can also customize the upgrades that this character has, such as, you know, be able to rejuvenate their health faster, or have a larger health bar, as well as be able to sprint a lot faster and be able to wield 2 SMGs. I mean, come on. You can wield 2 SMGs and be able to shoot at a higher rate. And you can use the money and the respect that you earn in the story missions, as well as the activities, to be able to unlock these. Customization even reaches the story mode. Every now and then you're faced with a choice between choosing one thing or the other that won't exactly change the way you play. You know, this isn't Walking Dead necessarily, but it does add a particular perk to your arsenal, and you can use that perk to help you out in playing the game. Some glaring issues that I did see in the gameplay would have to be that every now and then there would be a bit of a camera issue, especially whenever you hijacked somebody's car. I don't know what it was, but every time he beat somebody up to get them out of the car, which was kind of funny the way he did it, especially when you're beating up an old lady. That's hilarious and so wrong. But anyways, when he does that, every now and then the camera would kind of go inside the car and I wouldn't be able to see what's going on. So the camera would get a little problematic here and there. And sometimes the action, much like the story, gets so crazy that sometimes there's an awful lot of explosions and just gunplay and an awful lot of characters running around on screen that sometimes the frame rate suffers a little bit. Apart from the single player campaign, you can also play the exact same campaign, only this time in co-op. And co-op pretty much is exactly how it sounds like. They take every single mission from story mode and they just allow you to include a secondary character, which is a little daunting considering that the cutscenes are still there, only the cutscene only has me and whatever other character that cutscene pertains to from the story. You know, it's really weird seeing that cutscene and then jumping back to the gameplay with me and some other person online and not having that other person in the cutscene. So it felt a little cut and paste for me. But if you don't like that, there's also Horde Mode with a W. And it's pretty much exactly how it sounds. There's wave after wave of enemies thrown at you, and it's up to you to survive as long as you can. However, what the Horde Mode in this game has over other Horde Modes that I've seen in other games is that it's Saints Row the Third. The kind of enemy that you're going up against, the specific weapon that you have to use during this particular wave, it changes each and every single time. And I gotta say, I booted up Horde Mode, I played both in single player and co-op with somebody online, and I told myself, I'm only gonna play this for about maybe half an hour because I'm not a terrible, huge fan of Horde Modes where it's just wave after wave of enemies and just see how long I last. Okay, big deal, whoop-de-woo-do. I found myself playing this for an hour and a half, almost 2 hours, because I genuinely wanted to see what the next wave was going to be. Just because they take enemies that you fought in the single player campaign and they tweak them to make them either big or large or skinny or fat, or give them this specific weapon, make them look as ridiculous as possible. And I'm like, wow, I just want to see what they have up next. So needless to say, Horde Mode is a little bit addictive. I've said in my reviews of both The Unfinished Swan and The Last of Us that these are fine examples of games that you can show to people to prove to them that they are a true art form. Saints Row the Third is not. In fact, quite the opposite. This is the kind of game to support the people who say, oh, video games are bad, even though we know that they're not. This is just gonna, you know, throw gasoline in the fire for that argument. But I'll be damned if I didn't have an absolute blast playing this game. A lot of the jokes are funny. The story, while it started off as satirical, it gets so, you know, stupid and ridiculous and dumb that I'm able to forgive for that because it comes all the way around to where it's so stupid that it's fun. And because of the fact that it's a video game and I'm able to play it makes it even funner. Combine that with a great customization system, a decent environment to explore, some witty, funny characters, and a rather addictive Horde Mode. I said this is one of the best surprises that I've had recently in terms of going into a video game fresh. However, despite how much fun I had with the game, it does come with its technical hiccups, some personal pet peeves I had with it, and also it's not exactly the kind of game that would make me invested in the franchise and would make me want to buy the fourth one at full price. Maybe when it goes down to like 20, 30 bucks, I'll get it. I gave Saints Row the Third an 8.7 out of 10, which is a B+. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later. No, I can do that.